Hello and welcome to my little mini lesson on our document-based question on the American Revolution, which all of you should have gotten in class either Tuesday, the 22nd, or yesterday, the 21st. In class, depending on what day we received it, we looked at the directions, the instructions on the top, which tell us that we're going to be basing our question on the 6 documents, documents 1 through 6. The task is designed to test your ability to work with historical documents. As you analyze the documents, take into account both the source of each document and any point of view that may be present in the document. And we spent a moment yesterday in class, or today, depending on when you got this, we talked about the historical context, which is going to be right here in the middle of the first page. And you'll notice my note over on the left-hand border of your copy says that the historical context provides background information on what the particular DBQ is going to be about. So on each DBQ that we do, there's going to be a historical context. This is a fancy way of saying that this is background information on what's going to be included. So let's take a look at the background information and follow along as I read. In 1763, the French and Indian War ended. French colonies became British colonies. Great Britain had more land to protect. We talked about that in class after 1763. What happened to the size of Britain's territory in North America? It greatly expanded. Remember that purple map that we showed on the board when we did our lesson. The British Parliament decided that the American colonies should help pay for this protection. And as you might recall, payment for that protection would come in the form of taxes. All right? What the British government did caused a reaction in the colonies. These actions and reactions lead to the creation of the United States. So basically, this information here is giving you a backdrop or background information on what you're going to have to do throughout the rest of the DBQ. And the task, as we explained in class, using information from the documents and your knowledge of social studies, you'll need to answer the question that follow each document in Part A. Your answers to these questions will help you write the Part B essay, in which you'll be asked to do 3 things. And you'll notice we've got 1, 2, and 3 tasks down here. And each of these tasks, guys and girls, is going to relate to a particular body paragraph of your essay. Because we have 3 tasks, we're going to have 3 body paragraphs in our essays. But rather than getting caught up right now in the essay, the first step really, before you can even entertain writing your essay and organizing your essay, the first thing that you need to do with the DBQ is to read, study, analyze, and answer the questions that are going to follow each of the 6 documents in the packet. So if you flip to the second page of your DBQ packet, which is going to be page number 49, before you have the document to read and answer the questions on the first document, you have a sheet here that's going to help you understand the task. And what I'd like you to do over the Thanksgiving break, one of the things I need you to accomplish is I need you to read the historical context, again from the first page of the document that we just read together earlier. I want you to read that document again, the historical context, and underline the key words and ideas contained in it. Now, when I say underline, you're not going to be underlining or highlighting the whole document or the whole historical context. I want you underlining the key words contained in the historical context. Okay? French and Indian War might be a key word. The British Parliament decided might be a key word or phrase. The actions caused a reaction in the colonies. That would also be a key word and phrase. So I need you to underline in the historical context keywords and ideas. Then I'd like you to reread the task. Okay? It is organized into 3 task points, and each task point asks for different information. I'd like you to underline the keywords and ideas in each task point. Be sure you know who and what for each particular task point. And once you've underlined words in the task point, use those keywords to begin to identify a possible theme or a main idea that you're going to argue for in your essay. Then, skip down here, I'd like you to, once you've reread the task points, I would like you to use your own words to make the task point questions easier to understand. Okay, change them to a question. So you're going to take task point number 1. Explain 2 actions of the British government toward the American colonies after 1763. How would you make that into a question? How about I give you the first one here, guys and girls. This becomes a question by saying, what are 2 actions of the British government toward the American colonies after 1763? Rewrite that down here under your first rewrite of a question. And then you'll do the same thing for task 2 and task 3. Rewrite those in your own words into questions. Okay? Finally, after that, write down what you already know about each of the task points. You are going to be amazed at how much you know and how much we've actually covered not only this year in class so far, but in your previous years in social studies and your outside knowledge of social studies. You probably know quite a lot about each of these particular task points. Put that information down here on these lines here. Write down what you already know about each of the task points. And then keep those task points in mind as you begin to read the documents and answer the questions about them. All right, so let's flip to document 1 when you're ready. It's going to appear on page number 50 of your packet, the 3rd page in. And here's where we start attacking and analyzing and looking at each of the 6 documents. First thing you're going to do, you're going to read the instructions at the top of each document. Read each document and answer the question or questions that follow each document in the space provided. So clearly, document number 1, labeled up here on the top, it is titled Acts of British Parliament, and it's actually a timeline document. Some documents that we do might be timelines this year, some might be excerpts or portions of journal entries, some might be graphs, some might be maps. This particular document is a timeline, and it's titled Acts of British Parliament, and so you're aware of the title. I've even put it in quotation marks for you. I've added those so we can quickly identify the title of this particular document. Now, if you look at the document, it's a timeline, and like most timelines are read left to right. Most timelines that we talk about in history are going to be read. The older events are going to be on the left-hand side, and as you move right on the timeline, you're going to be moving farther and farther into the future. So in this case, you've got 1763 is the starting point, and 1774 is the end point. That's your timeline for these particular acts of the British Parliament. And then throughout the timeline, you see along the way each of the things as they occurred in the year that they occurred on the timeline. You've got the Proclamation of 1763 in 1763. You've got the Sugar Act and the Currency Act in 1764, and right up to 1774 and the dreaded Intolerable Acts. So after looking at the document and familiarizing yourself with the actual events on the timeline and the year that those events took place, you're going to be asked a couple of short answer questions. Yes, write in complete sentences when you answer these, and yes, be sure, this is the most important thing in the world with these short answer questions following documents. The first place you're going to look to find the answer in a DBQ document is going to be in the document itself. Now, you might not always find your answer there in the DBQ document, but the first place you're going to look is in the document. So let's take a look at question 1A. Who passed these acts? Okay, all of you are quite competent and able to answer this question, so I'm not going to answer question 1A for you. I will tell you again, though, just to remind you, the first place to check to answer the questions, the short answer questions following a document is where? Back in the document. Okay, so the question again asks, who passed these acts? Take a moment and answer that question on your handout. Okay, the next question for document number 1 is question 1B. And question 1B asks, list 2 acts and tell why colonists were unhappy with each. I want you to take note of the number in brackets after each question. This is how many points each question is going to be worth on the rubric. So clearly you can see that the first part, part 1A, is going to be worth 1 point, and part 1B is going to be worth a maximum of 4 points. And what we're asking you here is list 2 acts and tell why colonists were unhappy with each. So I put a little hint over here in my writing to the right of the question. This is going to require you to provide outside information. Now clearly you can list 2 acts by finding them on the timeline. So the first place you're going to look to answer question 1B is on the timeline. And clearly you can find 2 acts. And you can answer the question, part of the question 1B, by listing any of the 2 acts that appear on the timeline. Now where you're going to be required to find outside information and provide additional details is clearly none of the British acts up here provide details as to why the colonies were unhappy with each. So for whatever 2 that you choose, and you can use any 2 that you want, and you can choose any 2 that you want up here, each of those you have to provide a reason or 2 why the colonists were unhappy with each. So if you tell me the colonists were unhappy with the Proclamation of 1763, I need you to tell me a reason, at least one reason, why the colonists were unhappy with that. If you tell me that the colonists were unhappy with the Townshend Acts, I need you to include in your answer a reason the colonists were unhappy. In order to get 4 points, you have to have 2 British acts, and to get the additional 2 points, you have to tell why the colonists were unhappy with each. And that's going to require you to provide outside information, which you can use, which you can find using your notes, your text, your guided readings that we've done in class, any of the lessons that we've been working on during the Revolution Unit. Anything that you can do to provide outside information to back up your answer so you can maximize your points. First question 1A is worth 1 point, and question 1B is worth 4 points. So take a couple of moments now and answer question 1B before you continue. So after you've answered questions 1A and 1B for document 1, I would like you to go to the next page, which is the 4th page in on your packet, and it is number 51. And I would like you to answer the questions that appear. Now these questions here on this page relate to the previous document that you just examined on the timeline. I would like you to complete page 51 and these questions over the Thanksgiving break to complete them for Monday's class on the 28th when we return. So answer each of these questions regarding the title and the caption, the details, the main idea question, and question 6 using what you already know. Complete those. These all relate back to the timeline, which is part of document 1. Also over Thanksgiving break, I would like you to attack document number 2, which is titled the Declaration of Rights. And up here above the actual document, you have background information about this particular document. It provides information stating that in October 8, 1765, representatives from 9 colonies met in New York about the Stamp Act. Their meeting was called the Stamp Act Congress. They wrote the Declaration of Rights and sent it to the King and to Parliament. Here is part of what they sent. So this document is going to be a primary source document that was created in October of 1765, and it addresses the Stamp Act Congress and the Declaration of Rights and what the colonists would submit to the King. And it is very important that you attack this one paragraph at a time. And take note here, over on the left, I put the definition of consent, which means approval. And over here, I put the definition of procure the repeal. It means to obtain the repeal of the act. So you have a little understanding on what those terms mean. You also will be going over some of these terms in Mrs. Barnell's ELA classes throughout the next couple of weeks on these documents. So when you get finished with document number 1 and the questions on 51, go on to page 52 and answer the document questions following document number 2. Note that the questions are worth 2A 1 point, 2B 2 points, and 2C 2 points. This assignment should be completed for Monday, November 28th, when you return from Thanksgiving break.